also be scoring because it looks like one of our other presiding judges isn't going to be participating. So I will try to multitask as best as I can. A couple things that we learned yesterday for the teams is we do sometimes have technical difficulties that turns into, that's either somebody has frozen or their audio has gone out, not because they've muted, but because that there are some problems. What I will tell you is if I say, looks like we have technical difficulties or someone's frozen or something along those lines, you do not need to ask to stop the timekeeping. I would instruct the timekeepers to just pause until I tell you to reinstate, because having to ask actually chews up more time than if you just automatically do that, but it's only if it's coming from me. And the other thing is yesterday we had a little bit of problem. For sometimes my chat portion doesn't come to me in real time. And we had a situation where we ran out of time for a witness and I did not know that for about 5 minutes in. So if you have indicated in the chat that we're out of time and I have not responded within at least 30 seconds, I give the timekeeper permission to unmute themselves and announce time's up, and then we can all have that discussion. I just want to make sure, because I have so many things going on the screen, that I don't miss that. So, good morning, everyone. I need to make sure we have everybody here. Are all of the prosecution folks here, and are all the defense? If anybody notices, if anybody's missing, please speak up now.
All of prosecution is present.
Okay. Defense?
All of defense is present, Your Honor.
Okay, great. If the prosecution can give us your team code, we do not have that.
Are you talking about our team number, Your Honor?
Yes, I'm sorry, team number.
Prosecution's team number is 11.
Thank you. And defense?
Your Honor, we are team code 6.
6, great. Thank you. I need to ask if there are any members in the gallery that should not be here, and that is someone not associated with the team or not a parent. Does anybody recognize if somebody should not be here? Please speak up. Okay, great. All right, I'm going to proceed with swearing everyone in, and then we will get started. So, team members, can you turn on your cameras, and when you're turned on, please raise your right hand. Good morning. All right, team members, do you promise that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And any witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition?
Yes, Your Honor.
Great, thank you. All right, you guys can close your cameras, and I need the gallery members to turn their cameras on, please. I'm going to ask you to raise your hands. Do you promise to represent yourselves as positive role models and to behave in a manner that exemplifies ethical and professional sportsmanship during and after this mock trial round?
Yes, Your Honor.
Great. And you can close your camera too. And scoring panelist. And I guess I'll raise my hand. Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, I do as well. All right. So let's begin. Are there any preliminary matters first from the prosecution?
Yes, Your Honor. I would just like to confirm that our timekeeper will be keeping our time in the chat. And
Okay.
then next, we ask that time be paused until technical issues resumed.
Yep. Yes, we will make sure that that happens automatically. Okay. Anything else?
No further preliminary matters, Your Honor.
Thank you. For the defense?
Your Honor, the defense asks that we be able to conduct a redirect following cross-examination.
If you reserve time, I believe there was some debate yesterday whether or not that was, or no, that's fine. Yes, as long as you reserve time.
Thank you, Your
Okay.
Honor. We also ask that when we present exhibits that we are able to share our screen.
Yes, and what I will tell you, having learned from yesterday, is as you're asking that, unless there's an objection by the other side, just start loading them up, because I know they take a few seconds to get in. So I will assume that unless I hear an objection to them being loaded, go ahead and do that.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense has no further preliminary matters.
Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and get started. If the prosecution would like to start with their opening.
May it please the court, Your Honor, counsel. Reckless, revenge, responsible. Members of the jury, my name is Eliza Harper, and I am here today with my co-counsel, Sierra Speth and Connor Badger. We represent the state of Colorado, and today we are here to present evidence against Avery Becker, a reckless teenager who sought revenge against her high school mock trial coach and is responsible for his murder. We, the people of the state of Colorado, have charged Avery Becker with murder in the first degree and second-degree burglary of a dwelling. Reckless. The evidence will establish that Avery Becker was a reckless teenager who didn't follow through with her commitments, who didn't care about other people, and was completely focused on herself. Avery Becker lived a carefree life with no consequences for her action. Avery Becker was a student at Colorado High School and a member of their mock trial team. The victim, Mackenzie Brackman, was Avery Becker's mock trial coach. Today, you will hear testimony from Avery's teammates, Alex Cifuentes and Taylor Perkins, about Avery Becker's troubled relationship with the victim. That Avery Becker and the victim did not get along and were constantly feuding. You will hear evidence that when Coach Brackman demoted Avery to the B team, Avery Becker convinced her friend Taylor Perkins to quit so that she would be forced to back onto the A team. You'll hear that after a heated exchange that Avery vandalized Brackman's car and Coach Brackman kicked her off the team for good. Then Avery Becker threatened revenge. You will hear from the defendant, Avery Becker, who will admit to you that she said she would get back at Coach Brackman if it was the last thing she ever will do. Then you will hear from Alex Cifuentes, tell you about the text messages that he received from Avery Becker, telling him about her plans to break in and trash Coach Brackman's house. Revenge. You will then hear about how Avery Becker carried out her revenge on Coach Brackman. Unfortunately, on March 6th of 2020, Avery Becker went to Brackman's home wearing a mask and unlawfully broke into his home with the intent to commit the crime of criminal mischief. Police Detective Jordan Markowitz and crime scene investigator Kyle Cusack will walk you through the crime scene and provide compelling evidence against Avery Becker that establishes during the burglary that Mackenzie Brackman was murdered by the defendant. Responsible. After you heard all the evidence presented, I am confident that you will return a verdict of guilty and hold Avery Becker responsible for the murder of the victim, Mackenzie Brackman. This reckless teen who got revenge needs to be held responsible for her actions. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Do we have for the defense, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, opposing counsel. Today I, Jasmine Armijo, along with my co-counsel, Ms. Thomas and Mr. Pazin, are fighting for what we believe is right and just by our justice system. Today we have a teen, Ms. Becker, about to start her life as a functioning adult in this society. She is just like every other teen capable, determined, imperfect, and aspiring. She loves to spend time with her friends and play video games. She even joined a club, mock trial, in order to do so. The defense does not disagree that Mackenzie Breckman was murdered. We send our deepest condolences to the family. We do, however, disagree with the selected suspect of the crime. The prosecution has blamed a young, regular teen girl for the murder of a grown man, despite a lack of motive and verifiable evidence. Ms. Becker joined the mock trial team not because she was passionate or that she was an aspiring attorney, but because she wanted to play video games with her best friend. It was clear, not only to her coach, but her teammates, some of which you'll speak to today, that she was uninterested in mock trial. She often showed up unprepared. This outlines her clear lack of motive. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would like you to ask yourselves, does it seem plausible that a girl so uninterested in mock trial would trash someone's house and nonetheless kill for it? Ms. Becker did make a mistake and wrote on Mr. Breckman's car with a Sharpie, but that is all it was, a mistake. Ms. Becker believed the marker to be dry erase, washable. The prosecution has attempted to pin murder on this young girl whose simple mistake in a marker was apparently an action leading to murder. This is nonsense. Ms. Becker is not a perfect teen. However, to say that childish pranks are deemed equivalent to murdering a grown man is irresponsible. The prosecution will bring before you today another member of the Colorado High School mock trial team, Alex Cifuentes, as a witness. They claim my client has made threats and plans to enact this crime through evidence of alleged text messages from my client's phone when it was not in her possession. The text messages are also just screenshots rather than the physical text messages, which raises suspicion about the authenticity. The prosecution will bring before you two experts, Detective Jordan Markowitz and Kyle Kuzak. Both these experts claim my client has murdered a grown man despite a lack of forensic evidence. Were there any DNA or fingerprints found at the scene of the crime? No. The closest identifying evidence the prosecution has against the murderer were videos caught on security cameras, which did not reveal a face, skin color, or gender. They have blamed Ms. Becker of murder from a build of a body so common, another student on the CHS mock trial team has it. On the bright side, the defense will provide an expert witness, Ms. Blake Van Owen, who strongly believes that there is no possible way we can be certain the suspect was Ms. Becker. Furthermore, we will provide two testimonies proving not only the lack of motive, but an alibi for Ms. Avery Becker and Mr. Taylor Perkins, who was with her at the time of Mr. Breckman's death. My client is here today to tell the truth, as there's nothing she has to hide from. You are all capable, reasonable people who can find reasonable doubt in these accusations of the prosecution. You will not be presented forensic evidence, as there is none. You will not be presented with substantial or true motives, because there is none. You will also not be shown original versions of the alleged plans, because there are none. You will be left confused and with many questions at the end of this trial due to the prosecution. Where is the concrete evidence pointing to Ms. Becker? How is it possible that a small, young girl could have murdered a man double her size? What about her alibi? What could possibly be a true motive? At this point, I'd like to remind the jury, the prosecution has the burden of proof. Under jury instruction number 2, if you find from the evidence that the prosecution has failed to prove even one or more of the elements of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt, you should find the defendant not guilty of that crime. You are all reasonable people, and after hearing both sides, you will come to the reasonable conclusion, not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. All right, does the prosecution like to call its first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. We would like to call Alex Cifuentes to the stand.
All right, Mr. Cifuentes?
Good morning, Your Honor.
Mr. Cifuentes, can you spell your real last name for me?
K-I-R-S-C-H-N-E-R.
Thank you very much. All right, counsel, please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please state your name for the record.
Alex Cifuentes, S-I-F-U-E-N-T-E-S.
Are you currently a student at Colorado High School?
Yeah, I'm currently a I was at CHS.
And were you a member of the mock trial team?
Yes, I was.
And do you know the defendant, Avery Becker?
Yes, we were on the team together.
And from your perspective, how good of a relationship did Miss Becker have with the rest of the mock trial team?
Objection, Your Honor.
What's your objection?
Speculation.
Counsel, what's your response to that?
Your Honor, I do not believe it is speculation because it is Alex's point of view and observations of her relationship with the rest of the team.
I think I want a little bit more foundation on that.
Okay, Your Honor. Your Honor, if it would be okay, I can just move on.
That's fine.
From your perspective, was Coach Brackman a good coach?
Yes, he was. He was always trying to find something to better the team.
And did you work hard on the mock trial team?
Yes, I was always revising my examinations.
And from your perspective, did Avery work hard?
Not really. She always lacked preparation and commitment.
From your perspective, did it seem like Avery liked Coach Brackman?
No, it did not.
And was there a point when Avery's relationship with Coach Brackman reached a boiling point?
Yes, during the regional tournament last year, Avery had won Best Attorney and Best Closing Argument award, and that had set Brackman off because she came so unprepared.
And what happened after that?
After that, Brackman demoted Avery to B team.
And was the team upset about Avery getting demoted back to B team?
No, I think it was they were happy that Avery was demoted, but when she was promoted back to A team, they were quite disappointed.
And did Avery talk to Coach Brackman about her awards?
Yes, she did.
And how did Avery react?
Avery was quite disappointed in Brackman's how Brackman treated her and how he believed that she didn't deserve the awards.
And what did Avery do?
Avery ended up writing Worst Attorney Award on Brackman's Porsche.
And what did Coach Brackman do?
Brackman had kicked Avery off the team afterwards.
And was the team impacted with Avery being kicked off the team?
Yes, the team was in a very bad spot for state tournaments, and Brackman's trying to find a substitution, but Brackman couldn't find one.
And after getting kicked off, did she contact you?
Yes, she did. She asked me to help her get back on the team, but I only did it for the team and not for Avery.
And did Coach Brackman let her back on the team?
No.
How did Avery respond?
Avery was quite upset and ended up sending me text messages about what she was going to do to Brackman.
Your Honor, at this time, may I share with the witness what has been previously marked as Exhibit 14?
Yes, please do.
Mr. Cifuentes, can you please identify this document?
Yes, these are the screenshots of the text messages that Avery had sent me.
And are these true and accurate depictions of the text messages that were sent to you by Avery Becker?
Yes, they are.
At this time, I move for the admission of Exhibit 14 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense objects on 3 counts, being hearsay, lack of authentication, and best evidence.
Well, I think he's met the authentication. What is your argument as to best evidence?
Your Honor, pertaining to best evidence, due to these text messages being in speculation to whether or not they came from the defendant, they cannot be authenticated, nor can they be served as the best piece of evidence in regards to the conversation between Ms. Becker and Mr. Cifuentes.
Counsel, your response?
Due to the hearsay objection pursuant to Rule 801D2 as an opposing party statement and the statements by Alex Fuentes can be admitted pursuant to Rule 8031 as an exception to the hearsay rule. As of the evidence, I do not have an answer.
I'm going to allow it in. You'll be able to do some cross-examination on that, counsel. All right, proceed.
Your Honor, may I publish this record to the jury?
Yes.
What was the threat made in this text messages by Avery Becker?
The threat was that Avery would break into Brackman's house and trash the place when Brackman was at work.
And were you contacted by the police about the text messages?
I was, yes.
And did you go in for an interview?
I had, and I was going to bring my phone, but I left it in the charger, so they asked for screenshots of the text messages instead.
And did you provide your phone to the detective later?
No, I never did. I ended up trading it in.
And did the defense investigator ever attempt to interview you before the trial?
They did, but I stopped doing the interviews once I learned I was being accused of faking text messages.
And are you aware that the defense has accused you of stealing Avery's phone?
Yes.
Did you steal Avery's phone?
No, he's my friend. Why would he do that?
Your Honor, no more questions.
All right, any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Cifuentes, in your direct, you stated that you and Ms. Becker were friends, correct?
Yes.
However, Mr. Cifuentes, Ms. Becker's behavior often made you upset. Is this correct?
Yes.
Mr. Cifuentes, in regards to the behavior of Ms. Becker, you stated that their behavior was incredibly unfair, correct?
Yes.
Now, moving on, you and Ms. Becker were teammates on the Colorado High School mock trial team together.
Yeah.
And on this mock trial team, in your direct examination, you stated that you were always revising your examinations, correct?
Yes.
In fact, you would often create multiple outlines and drafts for your examinations.
Yes.
However, in contrast to you, Mr. Cifuentes, Ms. Becker did not put nearly as much care or effort in the mock trial, correct?
Correct.
In fact, in your direct examination, you stated that she lacked preparation, correct?
She did.
And in spite of this lack of preparation, Ms. Becker had incredible success in mock trial, correct?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Response, Your Honor?
Yes, counsel.
This pertains to the bias of the individual and Mr. Cifuentes. Due to the discrepancies between their work ethics, Mr. Cifuentes' reliability comes into question.
I'll allow it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Cifuentes, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Pertaining to the success, you often pin Ms. Becker's success on, quote, her good looks alone, correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Becker, you were jealous of Ms. Becker's success, which you saw as a, quote, slap in the face, correct?
It was, because she just never was prepared. She didn't have the commitment that I had.
Thank you, Mr. Cifuentes. Now, moving on, you got several messages from Ms. Becker, allegedly, correct?
And did.
However, you did not bring your phone to the police station with these messages, correct?
Correct.
And the alleged screenshots you sent over have no way of being verified, correct?
Correct.
Finally, when a private investigator did come to question you about these messages to verify them, you refused to talk, correct?
True. Yes. But I was being investigated for faking text messages, so I didn't want to share anything.
So on your own accord, you decided to not have an outside party verify these messages when you were asked, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Witness. Sorry about that. And does prosecution have another witness that they would like to call?
the prosecution would call Detective Jordan Markowitz to the stand.
Okay. And counsel, can you spell your last name for me?
Yeah.
Yes, you.
Badger.
Okay, thank you. All right, proceed.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes, I'm Jordan Markowitz. My last name is spelled Markowitz.
And how are you employed?
I've been with the Denver Police Department for 13 years, and I've been a homicide detective for 7 years.
Do you have any specialized training that applies to this case?
I have a cell phone technology and forensic data recovery certificate from the American Academy of Law Enforcement.
Timers, can you stop for a moment? I'm getting some feedback. Does everybody have their stuff on mute? Looks like it. Mr. Badger, can you just say something?
Yeah.
Okay. Is anybody else hearing any feedback? All right. All right, timers, go ahead and start. Mr. Badger, I'm sorry for interrupting.
It's all right. How did you receive your certification?
To get my certification, I had to complete a 3-day training course and pass the certification test.
What are you able to do through forensic data recovery?
I'm able to download information from a cell phone, acquire and interpret cellular records, and cell tower data, which allows me to determine where a cell phone was located at any given time and date.
At this time, I move to have Detective Jordan Markowitz admitted as an expert in homicide investigations and in cell phone technology and forensic data recovery.
Defense? Your position?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, Ms. Armijo, we couldn't hear you.
No objection, Your Honor.
Great, thank you. The witness shall be qualified as an expert.
Were you assigned to investigate the death of Mackenzie Rackman?
Yes, I was on March 6th of 2020.
And did you know the victim?
I didn't realize that I did initially, but later I recognized him as a criminal defense attorney.
What was the call that initially brought you into this case?
A passing motorist saw a potentially passed out person on the porch of Brackman's house, and when the paramedics found the victim, we got called in.
And what happened when the officers were called in?
Officers arrived and secured the scene, and I responded as soon as I could get there.
What did you notice upon arrival?
I observed that the front door was open and the victim was face down on the floor just inside the residence in a pool of blood, and a large knife was visible on the floor just past the victim's body.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with what was previously marked as Exhibits 1 and 6?
Yes, please do.
You identify Exhibit 1?
Yes. Exhibit 1 is a photograph of the victim.
And could you identify Exhibit
Objection, Your
6?
Honor. Relevance.
Counsel, what's your response to the, he hasn't moved for it yet, Ms. Armijo. He's just asking her to identify it.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Mm-hmm.
And could you identify Exhibit 6?
Yes, Exhibit 6 is a photo of the knife.
Are these photos a fair and accurate representation of what you observed at the crime scene?
Yes, they are.
At this time, I move for the admission of Exhibits 1 and 6 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. Relevance.
Counsel, what's your response?
These images go to show the murder weapon and the angle of the body of the victim, which can help show what the victim was trying to do when he inevitably died?
I'll allow 1 and 6 in.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Do I have permission to publish these photographs to the jury?
Yes.
Detective Markowitz, is there anything that you would like to address regarding Exhibit 1?
Yes, from Exhibit 1, you can see that the victim was near the front door, and from the angle of the body, it appeared that the victim had most likely fallen to the ground while trying to leave the residence. You can also see in this photograph that the victim had a security camera.
And what about Exhibit 6?
Exhibit 6 is a photograph of the knife taken at the crime lab.
Moving away from the evidence, what did you do after observing the victim anyway?
Well, after seeing the Ring camera on the front porch, I decided to walk around the side of the house, and I noted 2 additional Ring cameras, one aimed at the gate in the backyard, which was unlatched, and one aimed toward the back door. And when I got to the back of the home, I determined the back door had also been left unlocked and opened.
And what did you do at that point?
At that point, I entered the house through the back door and observed that the residence was slightly in disarray, and there was a partially open kitchen drawer containing several knives.
Did you notice anything else?
Yes, next to the kitchen was a dining area, and one of the chairs was knocked over, and there was a broken plate on the floor. From the table, I could see the open front door, including the knife on the floor, and there was cast-off blood splatter on the wall and ceiling near the door.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with what has previously been marked as Exhibit 7?
Yes.
Detective Markowitz, could you identify Exhibit 7?
Yes, Exhibit 7 is a photograph of the knife drawer.
And is this a fair and accurate representation of the knife drawer?
Yes, it is.
I move for the admission of Exhibit 7 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, once again, relevance. This doesn't go to clarify my client is guilty. It's just showing that the subject was in fact murdered, which the defense does not disagree with.
Counsel, your response?
This goes to show that there are many brands of knives, not just the knives in the knife block, which can go to show that the intruder did not, in fact, bring the knife with them.
I'll let the exhibit in.
And do I have permission to publish Exhibit 7 to the jury?
You do.
Thank you. Did you observe anything else around the house?
Yes, I looked throughout the rest of the house and noted that there were no other victims, and expensive items in the house included a laptop computer and several flat screen televisions had been left undisturbed.
And were you able to obtain any video from the Ring cameras?
Yes, I was able to access everything the various cameras captured on March 6, 2020, and there were 4 different videos.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with what has previously been marked as Exhibit 10?
Yes, you may.
Detective Markowitz, could you please identify this exhibit?
Yes, I recognize this video as one of the videos from the Ring camera that I obtained during my investigation.
And is this a fair and accurate representation of the video that you saw?
Yes, it is.
I move the admission of this video into evidence.
Any objections? Okay, you may, that exhibit is admitted.
And do I have permission to publish this video to the jury?
You do.
And what did you learn by watching the video?
I learned that the intruder was wearing a hoodie and some type of mask and gloves. The intruder initially tried to open the front door, but it was locked. And from there, the same person went around the side of the house and opened the gate and then entered the residence through the unlocked back door. And then finally, another video shows the same person running out the front door.
Moving on, what did you do to investigate this case?
I turned to the evidence and I downloaded the contents of the victim's phone, and I found a tremendous number of texts and email messages about something related to mock trial. I also realized that the victim was wearing a high school mock trial t-shirt, and I was able to determine that he was a mock trial coach for Colorado High School.
Did you investigate his work as the mock trial coach?
Yes, while it seemed highly unlikely that his mock trial activity had anything to do with his death, I needed to follow up on all possible leads. So I obtained a list of students on the team, and shockingly, the first student I reached out to gave me my biggest break in the case.
And who did you speak with?
I contacted Alex Fuentes, and he indicated that another mock trial student had texted something about a plan to trash the victim's house. And after that, I had Alex and his parents come to headquarters for a full interview.
And who had made the threat to trash the victim's house?
I learned that Avery Becker, a senior, had made the threat after she was kicked off the mock trial team for vandalizing Mr. Brackman's car.
And were you able to see the text messages sent to Alex from Avery?
I did. Unfortunately, Alex had not brought his phone to the interview, but he sent me screenshots of the text messages the day after our interview.
And what did you do next?
I immediately contacted Avery Becker in order to interview her, but my request was denied by her legal counsel. I also obtained a warrant to search Avery Becker's cell phone, but when I called her attorney, I was told that she claimed to have lost her phone on March 5th and was no longer in possession of it. I had to get a court order to obtain account records and cell tower records for March 6, 2020.
And were you able to obtain those cell tower records?
Yes, although technically what I received are called detail records called call detail records, or CDRs. First, let me explain. Cell phones constantly reach out to find cell towers that they can communicate with, even when the phone isn't in use. Thus, if you can access all the cell towers in your area, you can accurately determine where somebody is, even if their phone is in their pocket.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with what has previously been marked as Exhibit 16?
Yes.
Could you identify this exhibit?
Yes, they are maps with the cell towers as well as their ranges of use within the vicinity of Brackman and Becker's house. As well, it shows the route believed to be taken by Becker to Brackman's house on March 6th.
And this is a fair and accurate representation of the cell towers and the ranges of use?
Yes.
I move for the admission of Exhibit 16 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, so admitted.
May I have permission to publish the Exhibit
You do.
16 theory?
Yes.
And what information and conclusion could you make from looking at the call detail record data?
After looking through and studying the CDR data, I concluded that Becker was home between 12:45 and 12:50 on March 6th, then left and drove toward Brackman's home, most likely driving along Rock Creek Parkway, as seen on the route at around 12:55. Then from 105 to 117 was at Brackman's house. Exhibit 16 shows what I believe is the route taken by Becker.
Based on your experience, what could you conclude from all the evidence around you?
It was obvious that the victim had caught someone breaking into the home and had likely confronted the intruder with a large knife from the kitchen, but the intruder must have gotten control of the knife and stabbed the victim.
No further questions.
Thank you. Timers, can you stop one moment, please? Ms. Armijo, can I get you to test your microphone?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, can you pull your volume up just a little higher?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, that's great. All right, timers, you may start, and Ms. Armijo, you may do your cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening, Detective Markowitz. Mr. Brackman's death had been reported on March 6, 2020, correct?
Yes.
You arrived at the scene of the murder on March 6, correct?
Yes, I did.
And is it true that upon arriving at the scene, you noticed it in slight disarray?
Yes, I did.
And is it true that you were inconclusive to the cause of the disarray?
What do you mean by that question?
It's possible to be the normal state of the home, correct?
Yes, it is.
When you were able to identify Mr. Breckman, you considered this to possibly be the work of a disgruntled ex-client, correct?
Yes, it seemed like a likely option.
And isn't it true this could also be the work of a family member of a disgruntled ex-client?
Yes.
There was photo evidence taken from the scene, correct?
Yes, there was.
However, isn't it true that some of these photos became corrupted and were unable to be recovered?
Yes, although I didn't lose the images. I don't keep track of taking the photos and stuff.
But there were alleged text messages between Ms. Cifuentes and Ms. Becker, correct?
Yes, there were.
And is it true that Ms. Cifuentes had not had their phone on them the day of the questioning?
Yes.
And due to this, you had not seen the text messages straight from Cifuentes' phone, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Once I received the screenshots and based off my other evidence, it didn't seem necessary to have to call him in again.
And in your roughly 13 years of experience with the DPD, you found it quite strange, rare even, that a teen hadn't had their phone on hand, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, permission to share my screen with what has been labeled as Exhibit 14?
Yes.
1 moment, Your Honor. It seems like my screen has blacked out. I cannot see anything. Your Honor, my screen has froze and I'm unable to proceed.
Okay, if we can stop timing for a moment to see if we can get that up, or if a team member can help you, if that's allowed.
Your Honor, I think I figured it out. My screen has just come back on.
I'm sorry, what was that, Ms. or Miho?
My screen has come back on, so I'm going to try again if that's all right.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, it's not letting me share my screen.
Do you want to perhaps move to a different line of questioning, and then while you're doing that, see if you can pull it up?
I think it just pulled up. Can you see it? Your Honor.
We can't see it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I am not allowed. It won't let me present. So as the exhibit has been moved into evidence, is it all right if I continue with my line of questioning as the witness has already seen evidence?
Okay, so timing can start and you can go ahead and keep going with your testimony, and if it's already been entered.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Markowitz, just to clarify, Exhibit 14 is the photos of the screenshots of the text messages?
Yeah.
Ms. Markowitz, there is no date included on any of these text messages, correct?
No.
Due to this, there is no way to be certain the dates of these texts were sent, correct?
Correct.
And is it possible that these alleged messages were sent during the duration of time my client did not have their phone, correct?
Yes, but due to my expertise in this field, I determined that that was most likely not the case.
However, it is possible.
Yes.
Correct. I'd like to discuss call detail records, otherwise known as CDRs. In general, there is a complicated algorithm that pairs cell phone towers with the best available towers, correct?
Yes.
And isn't it true that, however possible, the cell phone does not always connect to the nearest possible tower?
Yes.
CDRs were able to record incoming calls and text messages from Mr. Perkin to Ms. Becker's phone, correct?
Yes.
And Ms. Becker had not answered those calls or text messages even after the time of Mr. Breckman's death, correct?
Correct.
And the times the phone was missing corresponded not only to the multiple missed calls and text times, correct?
Yes.
The phone's disappearance timeline also is consistent in having no response, correct?
Correct.
Moving on, 2 Ring cameras were found on Mr. Breckman's property, correct?
3 Ring cameras were found.
My apologies. One of which being on the south side of the home, correct?
Yes.
And another camera was aimed at the back door, correct?
Yes, it was.
Your Honor, permission to share my screen with what has been marked as Exhibit 10.
Yes, please.
Your Honor, it seems that I am still unable to share my screen, but as, again, the witness has already seen this exhibit, is it okay if I continue with my line of questioning?
Please continue with your questioning.
Ms. Markowitz, just to clarify, Exhibit 10 is the video of the Ring camera provided, which you saw earlier.
Yes.
The person in the video is wearing a hoodie, some type of mask, and gloves, correct?
Correct.
And is it thus true you were unable to specify the skin color of the subject?
Yes.
You were also unable to specify the hair color, correct?
Correct.
You were also unable to identify any defining facial features, correct?
Correct.
And lastly, you were also unable to identify the gender of the suspect, correct?
Correct, although you can identify general body shape and fit.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Witness. And if the prosecution has any other witnesses.
Good morning, Your Honor. We would like to call Ms. Kyle Cusack to the stand.
Okay, and could we halt time for a moment? Annalise, can we get your last name? It's not showing.
Yeah, it's Wampler, Wampler.
Spell that again, please.
Wampler.
Great, and all right, timer start. Go ahead and start.
Good morning, Ms. Cusack. Can you please state your whole name and spell your last name for the record?
Kyle Kuzak, Kuzak.
Ms. Cusack, can I ask how you are employed?
I am a certified crime scene reconstruction investigator with the Denver Police Department.
How long have you been a certified crime scene reconstruction investigator?
19 years.
What types of crimes have you investigated?
I investigate complex crime scenes, including home invasions, other property crimes, homicides, and domestic violence.
At this time, Your Honor, I move for the admission of Kyle Cusack as an expert witness in the area of crime scene reconstruction pursuant to Rule 702.
Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
Witness is so qualified.
Ms. Cusack, did you investigate the scene of the homicide at 444 South Flower Street?
Yes, I did, as well as reviewed all police reports, photographs, and ring videos.
How do you approach your investigations?
2 key principles guide my work. First, I assume that every case is going to trial, so I conduct a thorough and comprehensive investigation. Next, I document and record all information needed with a mindset of future reconstruction.
What did you do first in this case?
In this case, I created a witness tracking spreadsheet that summarized key points from witnesses and subjects.
At this time, Your Honor, may I show the witness with what's been previously marked as Exhibit 17 for identification?
Yes, you may.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Ms. Cusack, can you identify Exhibit 17?
Exhibit 17 is my work. It is including a witness tracking spreadsheet, physical evidence tracking spreadsheet, flowchart, and timeline.
Is this a record that you created at the time you were reviewing your evidence?
Yes.
Is this a record that you keep in your regular course of your business?
Yes, it is.
And do you always create one of these records during your investigations?
Yes.
At this time, I move for the admission of Exhibit 17 pursuant to the exception to the rule against hearsay, Rule 803, as a record of regularly conducted activity.
Any objections?
Yes, Your Honor. Just to cumulativeness, this document is going to be touched upon by the witness, and thus admitting it into evidence would be cumulative because the witness could just speak to it themselves.
I appreciate that, counsel. I'm going to overrule that objection and allow Exhibit 17 in.
All right, thank you, Your Honor.
Permission to publish Exhibit 17 to the jury, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Your Honor. What conclusions did you reach as a result of your investigation?
I reached the conclusion that on the afternoon of March 6, 2020, a perpetrator matching the general height and build of the defendant, Avery Becker, approached the Brackman residence. Upon trying the front door and seeing that it was locked, the intruder went around towards the back and entered through the back door.
Avery Becker,
The ring videos.
do you think the victim was eluded by who you think is Avery Becker?
Yes, I do. Because the ring app gives you notifications when it senses movement, and also a doorknob makes a sound when you turn it.
What happened next?
Based on my analysis of the evidence, the defendant and the victim proceeded to struggle near the kitchen. The victim had a large chef's knife in hand, and the intruder grabbed the large chef's knife and stabbed him once in the back. This is evidenced by the knocked over chair, broken plate, and scuff marks on the floor.
What happened after the victim was stabbed, Ms. Kuzak?
After the victim was stabbed, he proceeded towards the front door. Near the front door, he pulled the knife out of his back. Sadly, the knife had nicked the victim's aorta, and so he shortly bled to death afterwards.
Where was the knife found?
A few feet inside the front door.
Did your investigations lead you to any other conclusions?
Yes, this was clearly a planned burglary gone wrong. The intruder had knowledge of the victim's patterns and habits and chose a time of day to enter the home when he thought the victim would not be there. Yet the victim was there, and he was killed with the same knife that he introduced to the encounter.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. And before I begin, may I inquire as to how much time we have remaining?
Yes, timekeepers, if you can do that. 12 minutes.
Thank you. Ms. Kuzak, it's your belief that the perpetrator allegedly broke in and got into a scuffle with the victim, correct?
Yes, it is.
And during this scuffle, they moved entirely across the kitchen, correct?
Yeah.
And you believe that Miss Becker grabbed an unfamiliar knife from the victim's hand?
Yes, I do.
And while they were facing each other in the scuffle, she stabbed him from behind?
Yes, I believe so.
And you believe that a young teen girl was able to have enough strength and force by reaching her arm up and around to pull the knife all the way through to his aorta?
Yes, adrenaline can make people stronger.
And despite the scuffle, which knocked over a chair and broke a plate, there were no signs of fighting on the defendant when she was taken into custody, correct?
That is true.
Meaning that there is nothing to indicate that my client specifically had been in a struggle, correct?
Yes.
And the scuff marks, which you also cited as one of the reasons you believed there was a severe scuffle, cannot even be dated to the day of the crime, correct?
Yes, but chances are it is most likely dated to the day of the crime.
Yet we can't be sure whether it's from a scuffle with the perpetrator or from Mr. Brackman taking his shoes off the day before, right?
Yes, that's true.
And there was no DNA evidence linking my client to the crime scene, correct?
No, there is not. The victim or the intruder was wearing gloves on the scene of the crime.
And from the ring videos, you can't even determine the perpetrator's gender or ethnicity, correct?
That is true.
So while your conclusions do indicate that the victim was murdered, your evidence against my client is entirely circumstantial, correct?
Yes.
And you're testifying for the prosecution today, correct, Ms. Kuzak?
Yes, I am.
With the intent to convict Avery Becker?
Yes, I am.
Yet it's true that in your witness statement, you do not mention Avery Becker's name one time, correct?
I believe so.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Proceed.
So, Ms. Kuzak, if there was a scuffle, the adrenaline of someone can cause them to, as you said, be stronger, but have more of an intent to harm someone.
Yes, it's true.
So if they do reach behind their back, maybe it was that Mackenzie Brackman dropped a plate when he was trying to find a knife to protect himself.
That is possible.
All right, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Does the prosecution have any other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense would like to call Avery Becker to the stand.
So Ms. Armijo, you're with that's okay. I was just wondering if prosecution rests.
Yes, we do rest, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Now, Ms. Armijo, you may go.
Once again, Your Honor, my apologies, but the defense
No
would
worries.
like to call Mr. Becker to the stand.
Okay, and I'm gonna ask you to get closer to your mic again.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Miss Becker, will you please state and spell your last name for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Avery Becker, Becker.
Miss Becker, where do you attend school?
I go to school at Colorado High School.
And during your time at CHS, did you participate in any hobbies or clubs?
Yeah, I joined mock trial with my friend Taylor.
Why did you join?
Well, quite honestly, we just joined to play video games on our phone. My mom doesn't let me have my phone at home until I've finished all my work.
Do you enjoy the actual work of mock trial?
Not really. I mean, I do all right, but not really, not especially, no.
How is your relationship with the coach, Mr. Breckman?
It wasn't great. He could be pretty harsh on everyone on the team. He always wanted us to stick to scripts, and I just didn't really end up doing that. So we'd get into little arguments.
Was it important for you to have Mr. Breckman's approval?
Oh, absolutely not. He was just a mock trial coach, and not even a very nice one at that. He wasn't an important person to me.
And was it just you who Mr. Breckman would criticize harshly?
No, he was pretty harsh on all of us. He never really seemed happy with anybody's work.
Has anyone had a special connection to Coach Breckman?
Yeah, there's someone called Blair Rowland on our mock trial team, and I believe that their father actually went to jail because Mr. Breckman lost a case, and that's a pretty special connection. I can't hear you.
Stop timing for a moment. Ms. Armijo, I think your mic went out.
Can you hear me
Okay.
now?
And before we start again, do we have an attorney for the prosecution who's going to be cross-examining? Did we lose that person? Anyone from prosecution know who's supposed to be crossing?
I do. It is Eliza Harper, I believe.
Eliza, can you hear us? Aha. Someone from her team, please see if you can notify her that she is not showing and not responding. She may need to get out and re-enter.
Your Honor, my audio's been really cutting out.
Yeah, and we can't see you either.
Okay,
Aha.
can you hear me now?
We can. Were you able to, I wasn't sure if you had left by not through
No,
force of your own.
I was trying to figure everything out.
That's fine. As long as we can see you, then I can at least know if you freeze up again. All
Okay.
right, so we can get ready to proceed. Timers, get ready. Ms. Armijo, sorry about that interruption. And please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll repeat my last question. Has anyone had a special connection to Coach Breckman?
Yes, there's someone on our mock trial team called Blair Rowlands, and I think that their father actually went to jail because Mr. Breckman lost the case, which I think is a pretty special connection.
I'm aware there was an incident between you and Mr. Breckman. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I did the worst thing I've ever done, and I took what I thought was a whiteboard marker and I wrote on his car. I feel so terrible about this, and I tried to apologize to him in person, over text. I even offered to get a job to pay for another paint job, but he was murdered before I could apologize to him, and that's one of my biggest regrets.
And where had you found the marker?
It had been on a whiteboard. I was so sure it was a whiteboard marker. I never would have done anything that I thought would have permanent repercussions.
Is this the place where dry erase markers are normally kept?
Yes, I really thought it was a dry erase marker.
And had you attempted to contact the coach after the incident?
Yes, I did. I went to his workplace. I texted him. I tried everything I knew to talk to him and apologize to him.
How was your relationship with the other team members?
It was okay. Like I said, I was friends with Taylor, but I didn't really talk to Alex or Blair. We never really got along.
Mr. Cifuentes has claimed you had messaged them pleading for their help to get you back on the team. Had you?
Absolutely not, no. I was not friends with Alex. We didn't talk and we've never gotten along. So there's no way I would have talked to him to try, or talked to them to try and get back on the team.
Your Honor, permission to present what has been marked as Exhibit 14.
Yes, permission granted.
Once again, Your Honor, I am unable to present the evidence and exhibits. However, Exhibit 14 is once again an exhibit that has been admitted to evidence. It can
Okay, if the witness can testify off of having previously seen it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Objection,
Just
Your
to
Honor.
specify, Exhibit 14 is
Hold on,
screen.
there's an objection, yes?
I don't, reasoning, I don't see why this is important to the case, the text messages from another student's case.
I believe it, well, are you saying it's not relevant?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Armijo, what's your response to that?
Your Honor, my client has been accused of sending text messages, which she is not aware of, and I think it's important to clarify that.
I'll allow it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Becker, are you comfortable with answering questions, however, not seeing the exhibit?
Ms. Hensley, are you still there?
I'm still there. I'm sorry, my audio cut out. Could you repeat your question, please?
Are you comfortable at continuing the line of questioning based on Exhibit 14?
Yes, I'm familiar with the exhibit.
Did you send these text messages?
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not.
Do you have your phone on hand?
No, I actually lost it on March 5th.
Can you tell us about the day you lost your phone?
Yeah, the day I lost my phone, I wasn't sure exactly where I lost my phone, but I had spent time at the Fry Shack that day with Taylor and some other people from the mock trial team. Alex had been there as well. And I spent a lot of time at the Fry Shack that day with people from mock trial, including Alex, which is
Timer stop. Did we lose Miss Armijo?
No, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Ms. Hensley, are you still there?
Yes, I'm sorry. Could you please repeat everything from the last couple minutes?
Okay, and timers, go ahead and restart.
Would you like me to pick up with the last question?
Yes, please.
Can you tell us about the day you lost your phone?
The day I lost my phone, I had been to the Fry Shack. I think there had been lots of people from mock trial there, including Alex Fuentes. I don't know exactly where I lost my phone, otherwise it wouldn't be lost, but that's what I spent my day doing.
Were you around anyone when you last had your phone?
Yeah, I was with Alex Fuentes and other people from mock trial.
Had you tried searching for your phone?
Yeah, I spent all of March 6th searching for my phone. And Taylor and I we retraced our steps. We went to the mall and the Fry Shack, but we were never able to find it.
So just to clarify, you didn't search for your phone alone?
No, I was with Taylor the entire time.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right, any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Proceed.
So Miss Becker, you said that you were with Taylor Perkins the entire day, correct?
Yes, I was with Taylor the entire day.
So Miss Becker, Coach Brockman always said you were lazy.
Timer stop. Ms. Hensley, we're not getting you again.
I cannot hear you.
Can you say something one more time?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you keep freezing a little bit. Try that again.
Okay, could you please repeat your question?
There you go. All right, timers restart.
Yes. So Coach Brockman always said you were lazy.
Yeah, he always thought that I should put more work into memorizing the scripts. I don't really have the best work ethic when it comes to mock trial.
You and Coach Brockman didn't get along.
No, he was pretty harsh on everyone on the team. He always wanted us to memorize the scripts, like I was saying, and I never really did that. I just preferred to sort of go on the fly.
So to clarify, you guys did not get along.
No, he was my mock trial coach, and he could be pretty harsh.
You and your coach always argued?
I wouldn't say always, but we did get into arguments, yeah. I never stuck to the scripts.
He always thought you needed to work harder.
Yeah, he didn't think I had a good work ethic, which is fair. When it comes to mock trial, I don't try that hard for mock trial.
He got mad at you at practice for not paying attention.
Yeah, I would always go and I would just play video games with Taylor. We didn't spend that much time or effort on mock trial. It wasn't that important.
And Coach Brockman always criticized your work.
Yeah, he criticized everyone's work. He was a very harsh coach.
He told you over and over and over again to not deviate from the script, yet you never followed his directions.
Yeah, that was essentially the only thing we argued about, the fact that I never stuck to scripts like he liked.
He even rewrote your closing statement.
Yes, he did. Like I said, he was a big fan of scripts. He always wanted us to stick to them, and he would write scripts for people.
You argued at every practice?
I don't recall if it's exactly every practice, but we did argue pretty frequently. I never stuck to the scripts.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Counsel, your response to asked and answered?
Your Honor, I asked if they argued a lot in general, and now I'm specifically talking about their practices.
Overruled. You may proceed.
So you did argue at every practice?
Like I said, I don't remember every single practice individually, but we argued quite frequently.
In your witness statement, Ms. Becker, you stated in lines 50 and 51 that you did argue at every practice.
I'm sure we did then.
And you, under oath, you said that your witness statement was true?
Yes, it is. I'm sorry, I don't have a perfect memory. We did argue very frequently, though.
You told Coach Brackman that as a practicing attorney, that he wouldn't know a good cross if it hit him over the head.
Yeah, we were always getting into arguments, and I can say some things that can be quite harsh.
Based on your behavior, Coach Brackman then bumped you down to the B team.
Yes, he did take me off the A team, but no harm done because I was put right back on the A team.
And so you're put back on the A team because you allowed your best friend to quit for you so you could be bumped back up.
It was her choice. She didn't really care about mock trial, and I wanted to win some awards at state. So she left the team so that I could be back on the A team. It was really nice of her.
He took away your closing statement and gave you a weaker witness to cross.
Yes, that's true.
And you stated that the B team was full of losers.
They didn't do quite as well as the A team. No, but they still did win awards.
So I'm just clarifying for the jury. That's a yes to my question.
Yeah, they definitely didn't do
Honor,
as well as the A
relevance.
team.
Counsel, there's an objection for relevance. Your response?
I am just trying to prove the behavior that Miss Becker always presented to her teammates.
Overruled. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And so once your best friend quit, you were back on the A team, correct?
Yes, I got right back on the A team.
Coach Brackman said that you didn't deserve the best attorney award.
Yeah, I didn't stick to the script again, and he didn't like that.
Coach Brackman told you that you rely on your good looks.
I mean, at least he said something nice about me.
So that's a yes.
Yeah, he did say that.
You were really angry.
What are you referring to?
That after he said that you rely on your good looks, you were very angry with him.
I think I definitely was angry, probably very frustrated with him. That's not a very nice thing to say to someone who's won an award.
Miss Becker, you called Coach Brackman the worst coach in the state. I'm just asking for a yes or no answer on this question.
I did do that. Yes, we were in another argument.
And then you stormed out of practice.
Yes, I did leave practice.
And you used a permanent marker to write worst attorney award across the hood of Coach Brackman's white Porsche.
Yes, I feel so terrible about that. And I genuinely thought it was a dry erase marker. That was my biggest mistake. I feel really terrible about this.
Miss Becker, where you thought it was a dry erase marker or not, you still vandalized someone's personal property out of anger.
Yes, I feel really, really horrible about this. I never would have done it if I'd thought it'd been a permanent marker. It would have had permanent consequences, though.
Miss Becker, thank you. There was a confrontation in the parking lot after you saw what you did.
Is that a question?
Yes, it is. I would just like a yes or no answer,
It was
though.
an argument.
And then he kicked you off the team for good.
Yes, I was really mad about that.
And then you got even madder after that?
I was definitely upset, but I think I spent a lot of time crying that night. I would say I was very sad about it.
And Ms. Becker, even though you were very sad about it, you never told your mom what you did.
No, I think I always felt pretty ashamed of that.
So you lied to your mom to protect yourself?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Your response, counsel?
I am just proving the character of Miss Becker here, and this is just going to show how she treated other people.
Overruled. I'll allow it.
Could you repeat your question, please?
So you didn't tell your mom about vandalizing somebody's property to keep yourself on a safe?
No.
I lost
Timer
audio to
stop.
them.
Ms. Hensley, we lost your audio. Nope. Let's give it a minute. You want to try again, Ms. Hensley?
Yes, can you hear me
Oh,
now?
there we go. All right, timers restart.
Could you repeat your question, please?
So you tried to protect yourself from your mom by lying after you vandalized someone's personal property. Again, I'm just looking for a yes or a no here.
I wouldn't say I was protecting myself from my mom. I don't think I felt like I was in danger with my mom.
Miss Becker, is it a yes or a no?
I did not tell my mom that I rode on the car. No.
Okay. And you never apologized to Brackman in person?
I sent him several texts apologizing, and I tried to apologize to him in person, but I wasn't able to see him. No,
So
he
you-
didn't want to talk to me.
So you never actually talked to him after this incident, or you
Despite my
vandalized his
best
car?
efforts, I wasn't able to talk to him and apologize in person.
And Miss Becker, I am just looking for yes or no answers here. So, and then you told your mom that you would get back at Brackman if it was the last thing you ever did.
Yeah, I was very upset when I said this, and it was
Miss
something
Becker, it's just a yes, correct?
I was very upset when I said this, and it didn't show any true intention or anything, but that is something that I said.
So you told that to your mom?
Yeah, but again, by the next morning, I already realized this was a mistake and was going to apologize to him.
Okay, but you also put that in your witness statement.
I did. I'm not denying that I said that. That's something I said in a
All right.
sadness.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Miss Becker, was mock trial extremely important to you?
No, not at all. It was something I did to play video games with my friends, and it was something I turned out was to be pretty good at, but it wasn't important to me.
And were you enraged after you were kicked off the mock trial team?
I wouldn't say I was enraged, no. I was sad. I was going to miss state, and I cried about it, but I wouldn't say I was very affected or very angry about it.
And you did had you attempted to apologize to Coach Brackman in person?
Yes, absolutely. I went to his workplace, but he didn't want to see me, so I texted him. I really did everything I could to apologize to him because I felt so terrible.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right, thank you. Does the defense have any other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense would like to call Mr. Perkins.
All right, Mr. Perkins. Here we go. And just so I can make sure prosecution can hear. Oh, great. All right, there we go. Please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Perkins. Can you please state your name and spell your last?
Of course. My name is Taylor Perkins, Perkins.
And Mr. Perkins, can you please tell the court a little bit more about yourself?
Of course. I'm a freshman at CU Boulder, and I previously am now a graduate of Colorado High School.
And at your time at Colorado High School, were you in any clubs or activities?
Oh, yes, I was. I was in the mock trial team.
Can you please tell the court a little bit more about this mock trial team?
Yeah, this mock trial team, it was a good team overall. Ms. Becker and I think we made the team great. Mr. Brackman, our coach, it was a bit messy with that. He wasn't the best coach overall. He was more a mediocre coach, but overall, overall together, we were a good team, I think, with Ms. Becker and I.
To quantify the amount of time you spent with Ms. Becker, can you elaborate on how much time that may be?
The time, I'm sorry, can you clarify that question more?
Can you just elaborate on your relationship with Ms. Becker and how much time you spent with her?
Of course. Ms. Becker and I.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Counsel, what's your response?
This is directly pertaining to my witness's relationship with the defendant, and that relationship is incredibly relevant to the entire proceeding of this case.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes.
Your Honor, I do not see how much time the witness has spent with the defendant, Avery Becker, is relevant to the case.
Response, Your Honor?
Yes, counsel.
The amount of time that my witness has spent with the defendant directly pertains to their ability to testify further within this direct examination, as quantifying the amount of time allows my witness to testify to their personal knowledge and perception of Ms. Becker.
Yeah, I'm going to overrule the objection and allow the testimony. Please proceed.
Mr. Perkins, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Just pertaining to the amount of time, can you please elaborate on your relationship with Ms. Becker?
Of course. Ms. Becker and I, we spent a great deal of time together. We would hang out sometimes. We were good friends. We would play on our phones, and we overall went to the mock trial meetings together, and sometimes drove to school together during the first period.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. And furthermore, while you spend a significant amount of time with Ms. Becker, would you ever do anything for Ms. Becker that would compromise your own morals?
No, I would not compromise my own morals over any friend or.
Additionally, would you ever help Ms. Becker commit any sort of crime?
No, I wouldn't.
Moving on, pertaining to Ms. Becker's behavior on the team, can you please elaborate on your perception of Ms. Becker and her impact on the rest of the mock trial team?
Of course, Ms. Becker and her impact on the team was a good team overall. However, Ms. Becker was a bit less organized. She sometimes came in late to the meetings, and she was also a bit organized, and that sort of made the team a bit frustrated with her, especially Mr. Brackman.
Can you elaborate on the interaction between Ms. Becker and Mr. Brackman?
Of course. Mr. Brackman and Ms. Becker, they had trouble and they sort of had a feud going on. I personally wasn't involved, but I found it sort of funny. But they didn't get along very well. In fact, there were several arguments, such as getting the best attorney award, and the Coach Brackman saying that Ms. Becker didn't deserve it, and so on.
Following this argument that you mentioned between Ms. Becker and Mr. Brackman, what happened next?
Oh, Ms. Becker, she got a bit upset, and she tried to grab a dry erase marker from the whiteboard, and then saw Mr. Brackman's Porsche out front in the parking lot, and wrote worst attorney award on the hood.
To your knowledge, did Ms. Becker know that this was a permanent marker?
No, she did not. She thought it was a dry erase marker, but it turned out to be a permanent marker later on, which we found out
Objection,
later.
Your Honor, hearsay.
Counsel, your response?
Your Honor, this is in reference to my witness's not only lay witness opinion, but personal knowledge of Ms. Becker. So his testimony to whether or not Ms. Becker was aware of the permanence of the marker is not hearsay.
Overruled, I'll allow it.
Mr. Perkins, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Just restating that, can you elaborate on whether or not Ms. Perkins knew that this was a permanent marker?
No, she did not realize it was a permanent marker, and she was very apologetic when she realized it was.
And then following Ms. Becker's writing on Mr. Brackman's car, were there any consequences?
Yes, there was a few consequences. Miss Becker was then demoted from the A team to the B team after, she was demoted from the A team to the B team, she was kicked off the team after this happened.
And following her removal from the team, what happened next between you and Ms. Becker?
What happened next after her removal from the team is that Ms. Becker tried to apologize and sent texts to some of the other mock trial students, and and then we ended up going to the Fry Shack.
Can you elaborate more on your experience at the Fry Shack, Mr. Perkins?
Of course, at the Fry Shack, we found other teammates at the Fry Shack who later showed up. Everyone was super apologetic as to Avery, and saying that it was unfair, that it wasn't just that she got kicked off the team. Even Mr. Cifuentes was talking to her, and then Miss Becker, she went off to the restroom because she was Mr. Cifuentes was giving off a passive aggressive mood, and it was just upsetting Ms. Becker that I could see.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. And the following day, March 6th, can you elaborate on that morning for the court?
Of course. So usually we ride together for first period. So I was trying to make sure. So I was trying to reach Miss Becker and talk to her about scheduling a ride together, but she didn't. She wasn't responding because she wasn't able to find her phone, and it would appear to be lost. So we left school and trying to find it. We didn't have anything important for school, and the literature quiz that we already had, it ended up we already practiced or did it earlier in the week, so there was nothing important to do. So we left school and retracked our steps back to the mall, to the stores, and even checked with the afternoon shift staff at the Fry Shack.
You mentioned the Fry Shack. When you and Ms. Becker arrived at the Fry Shack, did anything else occur?
Yes, there something else did. The mock trial team, they ended up not being able to find Mr. Brackman didn't show up to the mock trial meeting on Thursday, and
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Counsel, your response?
Your Honor, this pertains to not only Mr. Perkins, but also Ms. Becker's knowledge of Mr. Brackman, and that information is relevant due to the claims brought against Ms. Becker and her possibility of break-in and murder.
All right, objection overruled. Please proceed.
Mr. Perkins, just restating the question, what information did you find out at the Fry Shack?
So at the Fry Shack, we found out that Mr. Brackman wasn't at the meeting, and he didn't appear to the meeting, so we decided to leave and come to the Fry Shack afterwards.
Now, wrapping up, was there at any point on March 6th in which you or Ms. Becker stopped by Mr. Brackman's house?
No, we did not.
And finally, was there at any point on March 6th that Ms. Becker was unaccounted for?
No.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Perkins.
Good morning.
You only participated in mock trial because of Avery Becker.
Yes, I participated in the mock trial because Avery, or Miss Becker, got me into it. So yes, that would be correct.
And you and Avery thought Coach Brackman was a mediocre coach and a mediocre lawyer?
I personally thought he was a mediocre coach and lawyer. If, as they always say, if they can't do, or if they can do, they do, and if they can't do, they coach.
From your perspective, it seemed like Coach Brackman was always giving Avery a hard time about something.
Yes, that is correct. He always had a few with Miss Becker, and they did get into a few arguments.
And this feud bothered Avery enough that she would play pranks on Mr. Brackman?
Yes, they had with this feud, there was a few small pranks that happened. Yes, that would be correct.
And Avery could be rash.
Yes, Avery could be rash, but there was no, she wouldn't go as far to commit murder or anything. That just wouldn't happen.
And Avery had an inflated ego?
Yes, you could say that at times. However, wasn't as common.
And so
stop the time. Mr. McFeeters, are you frozen?
I do not appear to be frozen.
Okay, good. All right, restart the time.
And after coming to another practice unprepared, Avery got demoted to a B team?
Yes, she was demoted to the B team. And later I realized that I found this unfair, as Avery was arguably the best attorney and witness on our team. So I stepped out in order for her to go back up to the next, or be promoted back to the A team, as this was, as it was important to, I thought it was important that she kept the stated
I'm sorry, it was just a yes or no question.
Okay, then that it would be yes.
And after the regional tournament, Avery and Coach Brackman got into another fight.
Yes, they did get into another fight.
And Coach Brackman told Avery that she didn't deserve the best closing argument and best attorney award at the regional tournament.
Yes, Mr. Brackman did say that to Avery. And it was unfair to say, and quite frankly, not true.
And Avery got very upset with Coach Brackman.
Yes, she was upset with Coach Brackman after that, and she went out of the meeting and to the parking lot and so on.
And Avery wrote worst attorney award in permanent marker on Coach Brackman's beloved Porsche.
Yes, she did end up writing on worst attorney award on Mr. Brackman's Porsche. However, she was very apologetic and apologized several times and tried to apologize to Mr. Brackman several times and even tried to offer to pay for the damage of the paint on the Porsche.
And yet it still ruined the paint on the Porsche.
Yes, it did ruin the paint on the Porsche. However, she did not mean for that to happen.
And Avery wanted to freak out Coach Brackman.
I would say that Avery was upset with Mr. Brackman. However, I would not say she would. However, I would argue that she did not mean to freak him out.
And so Coach Brackman kicked Avery off the team?
Yes, she was kicked off the team after this incident with the marker.
And you didn't think that was fair?
No, I do not think it was fair to be kicked off the team.
And after that, Avery tried everything to be let back on the team, but Coach Brackman wouldn't let her?
Yeah, she talked to several other coach members and tried to apologize several times as she was regretful of her actions. And she did try and get back on the team. However, she was not able to. Mr. Brackman would not let her.
Now let's move our attention to March 6th. You and Avery ditched school?
Oh, yes, we left school as we really had nothing important of that day. And so we went and retraced our steps all day.
Just a yes or no answer, sir.
Yes, that would be correct.
And you claim you were looking for Avery's iPhone?
Yes, we were looking for her phone all day and trying to retrace our steps as to where it might be. We looked with we walked in the mall. And we went to all the stores we went to and went to the Fresh Shack and checked with the afternoon shift staff.
It was just a yes or no question, sir.
Then yes, we did try and look for her phone.
And the entire day that you were looking for Avery's iPhone, it never occurred to either of you to use iCloud?
No, it did not occur to us.
And you and Avery are best friends, is that correct?
Yes, I would argue we are friends.
And you would do anything to protect Avery?
I would do what I felt was right, and such as stepping down.
No more questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Briefly, Your Honor. Mr. Perkins, pertaining to your cross-examination, did Mr. Brackman how would you describe Mr. Brackman's treatment of the entire team?
I would say his treatment of the team was mediocre. He was harsh to the entire team. Mr. Brackman wasn't really the most investive coach to the team.
Furthermore, in your lay witness opinion, do pranks correlate to murder?
No, they do not at all.
Furthermore, why did you step down from A team?
I stepped down because I thought it was important that Avery was the best person in our team, and she's what made this team great. And so I stepped down as so she could stay in the team.
And pertaining to the incident with the marker, did Miss Becker know that marker was permanent?
No, she didn't. She thought it was a expo or dry erase marker, and she wouldn't have wrote it on the car if it was a permanent marker. And she was really, really apologetic and tried to apologize several times over.
Moving on, what did you and Miss Becker do on March 6th?
On March 6th, we went around trying to retrace.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Response,
Counsel?
Your Honor.
Yes.
This was brought up on cross-examination, and I feel as though it's important to clarify what Ms. Becker and Mr. Perkins were doing on March 6th.
Objection overruled. Please proceed.
Restating the question, what did you and Ms. Becker do on March 6th?
On March 6th, we retraced her steps, trying to look for her phone that she didn't seem to have.
Looping back into mock trial, is mock trial significantly important to you or Ms. Becker?
No, it's not significant to either of us.
And finally, while you were friends with Ms. Becker, would you ever do anything that would compromise your own morals for Ms. Becker?
No, I would not.
Finally, would you ever assist Ms. Becker in committing a crime?
No, I would not.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. No further questions.
Right, thank you. If this witness can be excused, do we have any other witnesses for the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense would like to call Professor Blake Van Owen to the stand.
All right, and do we have a prosecution counsel? Just make sure we have everybody in.
Yes,
Okay,
Your
great. All right, please proceed.
Your Honor, before I begin, I would like to ask your permission, since the defense attorneys have been struggling with screen sharing, if I would have permission for my witness to screen share the evidence that I intend to bring in with her, seeing as she has the option to screen share and the defense attorneys currently do not.
I do not have an objection unless anyone from the prosecution is going to object. All right, please proceed that way.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Professor Van Owen. Could you please state your full name and spell your last for the record?
Certainly. My name is Professor Blake Van Owen, last name VanBlawowen. So sorry.
And Professor, what is your relationship with this case?
I was hired as a private investigator on the defense side for this case to look into the police practices and work that the prosecution did.
And what job experience have you had before and as a private investigator?
As a private investigator, I've testified in over 100 cases, as well as having expertise in crime scene reconstruction, cell tower analysis, and police practices and tactics.
Do you do any other work?
Yes, part of my foundation to allow me to have such an expertise is I'm a professor who teaches in social justice and police practices, and I am established at a university there, and I also have 9 months police experience.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense moves to admit Professor Blake Van Owen as an expert witness in crime scene reconstruction.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
She shall be so admitted.
Your Honor, at this time, does my witness have permission to screen share what has previously been marked as Exhibit 20?
Yes.
Professor, do you recognize this document?
Yes, it's a report that I would make for a case I work on.
Do you typically write reports for your investigations?
Yes.
Is it a fair and accurate copy of the report that you did for this investigation?
Yes.
And has it been tampered with in any way?
No.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense moves to admit Exhibit 20 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 20 shall be admitted.
Thank you, Professor. You can stop screen sharing now if you'd like. Now, can you detail to the court some of the significant findings that you examined?
Absolutely. So overall, the conclusion that I made was that the job done on the prosecution was quickly and hastily done and was led to many errors that made it improbable or unlikely that Avery Becker would have been the intruder or the murderer in this case, and therefore is not valid claims or evidence.
And what evidence did you use to draw these conclusions?
Absolutely. I just went through the police's case to begin with, and I evaluated what they had come to in terms of their conclusion through looking at the evidence. So starting with Kyle Kuzak, I went through the same thing, like the ring videos, the photos of the knife block, the plate, the scuff mark, and also his analysis of how Brackman was stabbed, and saw if I concurred with his statements.
And regarding the ring videos, what conclusion did you come to?
The conclusion that I came to is that the ring videos had a high probability of them not being notified. I mean, who has notifications for every single app they have nowadays? Our phones already pester us enough, right? So I think that it was an inconclusive and unfair statement to assume that the ring video notification would be on to alert Brackman, and therefore his whole case theory falls flat. If Brackman wasn't prepared with self-defense, why would there have been the knife in the equation? Why would there have been a struggle?
And regarding the perpetrator in the ring videos, did you disagree with your conclusions there too?
Yes, there's not really any good way to determine who is in the ring videos. They're wearing all black and they're the same height of build of many people. So to just assume that it's one person makes absolutely no sense.
You also mentioned that the investigation appeared hastily done to you. What did the investigation lack that you drew that conclusion?
The investigation didn't really have any concrete evidence, and anything that they might be able to use as concrete evidence, for instance, the screenshot of the text messages with Avery Becker, is not properly done to police procedure. A screenshot can be easily tampered with, so therefore the police usually use an app called Celebrite, which downloads all the information on a phone, so we can verify with 100% fact and truth that these text messages were sent. But this was not done in this case, and therefore it was hastily taken into evidence.
And you mentioned that you have a different case theory than Kyle Kuzak. What's your theory?
Well, seeing as Brackman most likely wouldn't have been notified by a ring video, and also the prospect of a young teenage girl, or frankly anyone, stabbing at such an awkward angle with the awkward handle of the knife, it makes absolutely no sense that there was a struggle, and rather that someone had come into the house with the intent to kill Brackman and not to have some sort of burglary.
Now, what were your overall conclusions about the prosecution's investigation into this case?
Overall, I found that the prosecution's investigation lacked substance to charge Avery Becker of murder, and I also found that the prosecution lacked the proper police procedures and methods to be held as substantial, even with what they have.
And in your expert opinion, do you believe that there's enough evidence to convict Miss Becker of this crime?
In my expert opinion, absolutely not.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any cross-examination?
Yes.
All right, proceed.
Isn't it true that you only conducted a partial investigation in this case?
I did the investigation that I saw fit for the case and what I needed to do.
So you did not you did not do a complete investigation.
What do you mean by complete investigation?
You did not review everything in this case. You only reviewed partial parts of it.
I reviewed what I had access to and the evidence that was given to me and what I saw fit needed to complete my job as I saw fit in my expertise.
And is it true that you never even stepped foot in the crime scene?
No, I didn't find that was necessary, and that's usually not my practice because since I deal in defense. I'm sorry, were you saying something? I couldn't hear you.
Yes or no answers will be fine.
Objection, Your Honor. If the prosecution is going to ask my witness questions, I'd like my witness to be able to answer to the fullest extent so that all of the evidence can be revealed in this trial.
Counsel, if you want to restrict her to a yes or no, you need to state that in the initial question.
Okay. One thing you agree with the prosecution is if the evidence points to an intruder, but you don't agree with the prosecution's depiction of events inside the house. Is that correct?
I mean, yes, there's a murder here. There has to be an intruder somewhere.
And you don't believe that there was a physical altercation. Is that correct?
No, the evidence doesn't point to that.
And based on your claim that the only apparent evidence is of a struggle is the scuffing on the floor.
I did bring up some of the other points that Cusack made that I also disagree with. The scuff is just one of the many things on the camel's back that makes no sense.
And is it true that you reviewed all of the evidence in this case?
I reviewed the evidence that I had and saw necessary.
And did you see in the evidence the picture of the overturned chair and the picture of the plate on the floor?
Yes.
Don't you believe that that could allude to a struggle?
I think that it's a very circumstantial thing that you would need other evidence to pile up to make sense, but the other evidence doesn't add up to that story. Chairs can be overturned and plates can be broken for other reasons.
And you also believe that the perpetrator brought the knife because the knife and the knife block are a different brand and style, correct?
Yes, I mean, it makes no sense if everything else matches.
But didn't you also know in the photographs that there is a knife drawer full of lots of different brands and styles of knives?
Yeah, and those ones are in the drawer, not in the knife block.
All right, let's talk about your theory of the case. You believe that the perpetrator snuck up on the victim and stabbed the victim with a weapon they brought to the victim's home. Is that correct?
Yes, it makes much more sense and it's a lot more practical.
You question whether the victim would have been notified by the Ring camera about movement by his front door.
Yes.
But in Exhibit 10, which is the first Ring video and is already in evidence, you can hear the intruder shaking the doorknob loudly. Don't you think the victim would have heard that?
By that time, it might have been too late, and also they could have been preoccupied. Again, that's so many maybes. Do we really want to charge someone on murder?
And if Brackman was sitting down, like you suggest, didn't you think that there should be bloodstains on the couch or chair where he was sitting?
I think that the way that he was stabbed actually plugged the blood for the most part, and so his bleeding didn't really occur until the knife was pulled out in the hallway. And this was concurrent with the findings that Cusack stated as well.
Isn't it true that you were being paid money to testify in this courtroom?
I mean, yes, I put quite a lot of work into this.
Objection, Your Honor. I don't see why this is relevant when the prosecution's experts also get paid to do their jobs.
I'll allow it. It's relevant as to any bias.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And
you can answer the question, Ms. Renzo.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, you were just asking that I get paid, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I get paid for all the jobs I do. So especially for one that I end up having to put a lot of time into and a lot of stress, I certainly hope I get paid for the work I do.
And it's true that to date, you have been paid $7,000. And after this trial, you will earn another $1,000. Is that correct?
It's what I earned.
And you testify only on behalf of defense. Is that correct?
Well, seeing as the prosecution usually has the police department to use for their case, it doesn't really make sense for them to hire a private investigator. I work on the defense side because that's what hires me. So yes.
No further questions.
Any redirect?
Very briefly, Your Honor. Professor, what evidence did you review in this case?
I reviewed the evidence that was given to me by the police department and which I found was substantial to review. And in fact, while I may not have reviewed every single bit of evidence, I don't think it's necessary that I need to do that because I just had to show whether or not the police department did a good job. And I was able to make my conclusion well enough.
So was the evidence you had access to sufficient for your job?
Absolutely.
Now, moving on to the line of questioning about the stab wound itself, why would there not be any blood?
The knife was stabbed right into the aorta, which actually worked as a plug. So there wasn't lots of bleeding from the knife wound until the knife was removed, thus unplugging the aorta and allowing blood to flow more freely from the wound itself. So therefore, you wouldn't really see any bleeding until the knife was removed.
And is this consistent with what the prosecution found too?
Yes, it was in their autopsy report.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Does the defense have any other witnesses or do they rest?
No, Your Honor, the defense rests.
Okay, we can have closing arguments first from the prosecution. And do we have defense counsel also for closing? Just make sure I'm not losing people.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. Let's go ahead and proceed with prosecution's closing.
Reckless revenge responsible. Your Honor, members of the jury, today we, the people of the state of Colorado, have presented our case against Avery Becker. You've heard the story of Avery Becker, a reckless student who, in seeking revenge for being kicked off the mock trial team, broke into her coach's home on March 6th, 2020, and is responsible for his murder. Reckless. You heard from Kyle Cusack, who showed that Avery Becker was caught in the act of breaking and entering into Brackman's house because she was being reckless and was too angry to think of why she might not want to commit a felony. Revenge. You heard from Alex Cifuentes, who laid out the motive for Avery Becker to murder Mackenzie Brackman. Avery was kicked off the mock trial team for vandalizing Brackman's car. To get revenge, she planned to trash his house, but in the process of that crime, she was caught and killed Coach Brackman. Responsible. You heard from Detective Jordan Markowitz, who showed where Avery Becker was through the call detail records and to plot the course that Becker took to get from her house to Brackman's house. Let me remind you of the charges Avery Becker faces in this case. Second-degree burglary of a dwelling, that on March 6, 2020, Avery Becker unlawfully, feloniously, and knowingly broke an entrance into, entered, or remained unlawfully after a lawful or unlawful entry in the dwelling of Mackenzie Brackman, located at 444 South Flower Street, with the intent to commit therein the act of the crime of criminal mischief. Murder in the first degree, that on March 6, 2020, Avery Becker unlawfully and feloniously committed or attempted to commit second-degree burglary, and during the course and furtherance of that crime, Mackenzie Brackman was murdered. Avery Becker's intent to break into Mackenzie Brackman's house and damage his property is clear. Alex Cifuentes testified to receiving text messages from the defendant stating that Avery was going to trash Brackman's house while he was at work. The murder also happens to be at the time that Brackman would normally have been at work. The call detail records can also plot out Becker's course from her house to Brackman's house. The time of the points also lines up with the time frame of the murder. This proves, without a doubt, that Avery Becker committed burglary in the second degree by entering Brackman's house unlawfully and staying there unlawfully as well. It also proves, without a doubt, that Avery Becker committed murder in the first degree by fatally stabbing Brackman in the left shoulder during the act in furtherance of that break-in. we, the prosecution, feel that when you consider the evidence and the testimony of the witnesses in this case, you will find in favor of the prosecution and convict Avery Becker of murder in the first degree and second-degree burglary of a dwelling. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Ms. Thomas.
May I begin, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. The defense does not disagree that Mackenzie Brackman was murdered. Our deepest condolences are extended to Mr. Brackman's family after this tragedy. Yet the root of the matter, where the defense does disagree, is who committed this crime. The prosecution has blamed a young girl for the murder of an adult man, despite an evident lack of motive and verifiable evidence. Today, we have seen a young lady who is not perfect. But does that lack of perfection mean that she's a killer? Miss Becker often came unprepared to mock trial. She lacked a real interest in the club, which was confirmed by witnesses on both sides of today's case. This outlines her clear lack of motive. Someone uninterested in a club, who's not even putting in the effort to come prepared, is not going to put in the effort to break into somebody's house, let alone kill somebody. She had, before the victim's death, written on his car in Sharpie, but she has testified that she believed that it was dry erase marker that would wipe off, and upon realizing the extent of the vandalism, even offered to get a summer job to pay to repaint the car. Does that kind of remorse sound like somebody who would kill somebody? Miss Becker is by no means perfect, but her simple disinterest and a petty prank gone wrong is not equivalent to stabbing a grown man to death. The prosecution has brought to you today two expert witnesses who have both attempted to claim that Miss Becker is a murderer, despite a lack of forensic evidence. There was no fingerprints and no DNA evidence found at the scene of this crime. The ring videos, which they used to cite my client as guilty, do not even show a gender or ethnicity. The connection between my client and these videos is based on a similar height and build, a height and build which half the people in this trial today have. They spent a significant amount of time bringing in evidence which only showed that the victim was killed, not who did it. The defense doesn't agree that the victim was killed. That's evident from these photos. But the evidence that they brought in has not linked my client to this crime. They also brought forward a character witness, Alex Cifuentes, to testify that my client made threats and plans to enact this crime, even though my client did not even have access to her phone at the time that these text messages were allegedly sent. These text messages, further, have no date and no timestamp, and the prosecution experts did not even see these messages themselves, just screenshots, which could have easily been altered. Alex even said that Avery Becker was lazy when it came to mock trial, so why would she kill over it if she put in so little effort? However, the defense has provided an expert stating that it can't be certain that Miss Becker committed this crime. We also presented two testimonies confirming a lack of motive and an alibi. However, this alibi was not investigated thoroughly by the prosecution, who did not look at the call records to prove that they were searching for my client's phone at the time of this murder. Further, Ms. Becker readily took the stand today, proving that she has absolutely nothing to hide. This is a murder, but you are reasonable people who can find reasonable doubt in the claims of the prosecution. You have not heard forensic evidence. You have not heard a citing of my client at the scene of the crime. You have not heard a substantial or true motive, and you have not seen original versions of her alleged plans. If I were in your shoes today, the prosecution would have left me with many questions, or much reasonable doubt, if you will. Where's the forensic evidence? What about her alibi? How is this even physically possible? What about her lack of motive? Today, the prosecution holds the burden of proof, meaning that if the evidence in this trial today were a scale, they would have to tip it over 99% of the way. You cannot leave this trial with reasonable doubt if you decide to convict my client. Reasonable doubt is any reasonable questions that you might leave with, such as the questions that I just mentioned. And Although the prosecution has stated that it's most likely that Avery Becker committed this crime, that could mean anywhere from 51% to 99%. And to convict my client today, you need 99%. That is something that the prosecution has simply not been able to provide to you today. You are reasonable people, and I encourage you to make the reasonable decision, not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. All right, if everyone wants to hold on a minute so that we can get the scores in, then we're happy to give you guys some feedback if you want to stick around. So we just have to put our stuff in.